Before I speak about the Parsha, I just want to say that I think the Jewish community in Canada should be very disheartened by the reaction of Canada's government to the decision of the unfortunate decision of the International Criminal Court to issue an arrest warrant for the Prime Minister of our democratic ally, the State of Israel, and his Defense Secretary. We should be very disheartened by that. It is very undermining to a country that is struggling right now to protect itself under very, very difficult circumstances. And I think it should be mentioned because this arrest warrant and the decision of the International Criminal Court, we would be mistaken if we think that's only about Netanyahu and about Gallant. It's actually about far more than that. It is an indictment against the whole country. It's an indictment against every Jew in this country that supports the State of Israel. And it is particularly an indictment against the soldiers of the IDF. Who are being accused of terrible, terrible war crimes, which never happened. This court and its consistent bias against Israel raises serious questions about its legitimacy and its objectivity. And when you talk about Canada not wanting to be political and treat this court sort of without any leanings one way or another, and just respect its authority. To me, I do not understand how you can do that to a court that is inherently, repetitively taken such biased positions against the State of Israel over time. And I think Canada is risking aligning itself with an agenda that is very political, instead of standing firm on the principles of justice and fairness, which have always characterized the way this country sees the world. So this is an act that emboldens those who seek to delegitimize Israel. It's very unfortunate, and it is not too late for Canada to reevaluate its position, to reaffirm its commitment to fairness and justice, and all of us should urge the government to withdraw its support for this misguided action and focus instead on what it should be focusing on, which is promoting dialogue and peace in the region. This action does the exact opposite. So I want to say something now about Hessed and about the way we learn about Hessed in this week's Parsha, the way we learn what it is and the way we learn what it is not. Hessed is a very, very important idea in Judaism. And it is the quality which, according to Jewish tradition, defines Abraham, our patriarch. Chesed le'Avraham. It's a common term in rabbinic Judaism. Kindness, loving kindness, acts of kindness, these all stem from Abraham. What is chesed? I think to many of us, we take this category and ascribe to it some of the greatest mitzvahs there are in Judaism. Visiting the sick, that's chesed. Comforting a mourner, that's chesed. Giving tzedakah, that's chesed. All beautiful, beautiful mitzvot that fall under that umbrella. But I want to submit to you that those particular mitzvot are not the only ways. In fact, they're just the beginning of understanding what chesed is. I believe that it's not merely a reference to discrete actions that you would call kind actions, that it is something deeper, that it's something foundational to who we are as Jews and how we relate to one another. This is a particularly urgent question today, the question of what is Hessed, because within Israel there are those challenging the fundamental definition of what that word means. I saw a video from Israel earlier this week by a leading voice in the ultra-Orthodox world, Rabbi Moshe Hillel Hirsch. He's a very, very well-respected leader of the Haredi or ultra-Orthodox community in Israel, and it left me stunned, because in it he claimed that the learning and the chesed of Haredi yeshiva students is sufficient to sustain the Jewish people, and that refusing to support serving in the IDF is not only acceptable, but it's a mitzvah. They are required to refuse to report because that is chesed. So to my ears, this statement from such a well-recognized authority, it fundamentally misunderstands what chesed is and what it demands of us. It reduces a profound active mitzvah to a hollow abstraction. How can chesed be fulfilled while ignoring the very real sacrifices made by tens of thousands of IDF soldiers and their families? This is not just a question for the Haredi community, it is a challenge for all of us. And I think that our reading this morning, Parashat Hayyei, offers us some insights and some lessons about chesed as acts requiring responsibility, acts requiring sacrifice, acts requiring kindness. The story this morning opens with Abraham's negotiations to purchase Me'arat HaMachpelah, the cave of the patriarchs, as a burial site for Sarah. At first glance, this might seem like a mere business transaction, but Avraham's actions reveal chesed. How so? He was offered and could have accepted this cave as a gift from the Hittites, but he insists on paying full price. Why? Because he understands that chesed requires personal investment. It's not enough to act in ways that are convenient or cost-free. True chesed demands effort and sacrifice and a willingness to bear responsibility for the future. Consider also the way Avraham sends his servant Eliezer to find a wife for Isaac. The selection of Rivka hinges on what? On her act of kindness and sacrifice. She offers water to both Eliezer and his camels. Her acts of generosity, they are not just a minor detail in the story. It is the defining trait that qualifies her to join Avraham's family. She fits in to the theme of chesed. This is, I would offer, the great legacy of Avraham. It is a chesed that is active and far-reaching, building not just relationships between individuals, but the very foundations of a just and compassionate society. Chesed rooted in responsibility, a recognition that we are bound to one another and must act for the greater good. The Talmud teaches the world stands on three pillars. Al shlosha dvarim ha'olam omed. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah, service, ve'al gemilut chasadim, acts of chesed. Chesed in this framework isn't just optional. It is one of the core elements that sustains not just the Jewish people, ha'olam, the whole world. Without Hessed, the world collapses. This is not just an ethical teaching. For the great Rabbi Aaron Lichtenstein of blessed memory, the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshivat Har Etzion in Israel, this moral teaching is practical and instructive. He emphasized in his life the greatest, most essential form of chesed that there is protecting the lives of other people. Serving in the IDF, he wrote, is not merely a halachic obligation. It is chesed as a moral imperative rooted in the Jewish commitment to protect life, to kindness, to responsibility. There is no greater chesed than defending the lives of your people. Consider this. When an IDF soldier leaves their family and career behind to stand guard on the borders, they are not doing it for themselves. They are doing it for all of us, for the elderly woman in Tel Aviv, the child in Beersheba, the refugee from Ukraine, the young family in Toronto, and yes, that Haredi yeshiva student in Bnei Brak. This is the ultimate chesed, selflessly putting the needs of others above your own. Maimonides, in his Laws of Tzedakah, teaches that the highest form of kindness is helping others in a way that enables them to stand on their own. What greater act of empowerment is there than creating a safe and secure society where all can thrive? Chesed, in this sense, is not passive. It demands action, effort, and sacrifice. Let me share one remarkable story of sacrifice, the story of Elad, a young father and elite unit reservist in the IDF. This war now is going on for a long time. Elad has been called up to serve repeatedly, most recently in Gaza. He's a software engineer by profession. He has had to put his flourishing career on hold numerous times. Each deployment comes with a profound emotional toll. He's leaving behind his wife. He's leaving behind 2 small children, the youngest only a few months old. During his current deployment, Elad's unit has been engaged in some of the most intense combat operations in Gaza. Despite knowing the risks, Elad says he feels a moral obligation to defend Israel and ensure a safe future for his children. His wife, struggling with the responsibilities of managing their home alone, supports his decision, though she admits it is extraordinarily difficult to live with constant worry for his safety. Elad's sacrifices extend beyond his family life. His frequent absences have stalled his professional advancements, creating significant and enduring financial strain. His story is far from unique. I would actually say the sacrifices that the soldiers and their families are bearing is the biggest story in Israel right now. I speak to many friends in Israel in their 20s and 30s and 40s. A friend of mine told me last week that his son is in Gaza and that in his son's unit there are a bunch of guys who are now doing their 3rd or 4th tour of duty since the war started. This time, my friend recounted, his son told him that some of the wives said to their husbands, "You can't go back. I can't do this anymore." with all the kids, with my job, with an empty bed. Don't go. But of course, these heroes feel a commitment to the country and even more to their buddies at the front. So in most cases, they do go back. A couple of guys in the unit, my friend told me, had wives who said to them as they were getting to leave, if you go, don't bother coming back. I doubt that they meant that. But marriages are hurting. Children won't speak to their fathers when they do get home. Many, many lives are a horrific mess. These are some of the unimaginable sacrifices being made right now because so many Israelis are committed to the Hessed of defending our people. So many Israelis, but not enough. There are tens of thousands of young, healthy men who could help share this burden, but refuse. Rav Hirsch's assertion that Torah learning and some vague concept of Hesed exempts these men from service is not only a rejection of responsibility, but a profound misunderstanding of what Hesed truly means. The Talmud teaches that Jews are defined by three traits. We are Rachmanim, merciful, Baishanim, humble, and Gomlei Chasadim, performers of Chesed. These qualities are not theoretical. They must manifest in how we live and act. The Haredi refusal to serve in the IDF, it violates all three traits. It shows a lack of Rahmanut, compassion, for the reservists who carry the overwhelming burden of national defense. It demonstrates a lack of busha, shame, as the Haredi community feels no accountability for the suffering their choices are imposing on others. And it utterly fails the test of Chesed, neglecting the most fundamental act of kindness, protecting lives. Rav Hirsch claimed in his video that Haredi yeshiva students are engaged in Chesed. They're not. Chesed is tangible, impactful, rooted in actions. When tens of thousands of IDF reservists are separated from their families for months on end, creating what one commentator called, quote, functional widows and orphans, end quote. The refusal to share that burden is not chesed. It is achzariyut. That means cruelty. True chesed is not about convenience or self-interest. It is about stepping up when the moment demands it, even at the great personal cost. It is the father who kisses his children goodbye to serve on the front lines. It is the widow who brings food to a mourning family. It is the young man or woman who sacrifices their comfort and safety for the sake of their nation. As Jews, we are called to be like Abraham, to take responsibility for others, even when it requires sacrifice. To those who claim that Torah learning alone sustains the Jewish people, we must say, Torah without chesed is hollow. It is a betrayal of the values it claims to uphold. Refusing to serve in the IDF is not just a policy issue or a religious debate. It is a moral failure. It turns a blind eye to the suffering of countless families and undermines the very fabric of Jewish unity. Parashat Hayyei reminds us that Hessed is not just an act, it is a way of life. It demands responsibility, selflessness, and a willingness to invest in the well-being of others. As we honor the sacrifices of IDF soldiers, let us challenge ourselves and our communities to embody the true meaning of Hessed. We have a role to play as well. Maybe here in Canada we can't serve, but there is much we can do to help those who are serving. Let us be compassionate and courageous, standing together. At this time more than ever, we must be one nation, shouldering the burdens of one shared destiny. May we merit a time when every Jew, regardless of background, answers the call to protect and uplift one another, and particularly in this time of great danger, may God bless those who perform the ultimate chesed, the soldiers of the IDF and the security forces, safeguarding the future of Am Yisrael. Shabbat Shalom.